Hey everybody, I'm Magic here, and I'm here today with a top 5 budget competitive decks for you. So, like myself, I'm a bit of a budget player. I can't be affording the £400, £500, £600 deck list that are kind of floating around right now. The Brave Engine's super expensive, DPEs are super expensive, Baron de Fleur, expensive. These are staples or decks that you kind of just can't afford right now. The Brave Engine splashed into a lot of decks is really expensive. Sword Soul on its own is still very expensive. And so all these meta decks have got a lot of money to them. So these are going to be the top 5 decks that I'd say maximum of £150. Now I understand 150 is still quite a lot of money, but this is like no higher than 150. Like if you can get a deal, you can get a deal. You might be able to buy the whole deck core for cheaper. But yeah, this is like the cap of £150, but this is like you could go on the local level at least to a tournament and be able to at least get some money back. You'd pay your entry fee, you get your entry pack, and you'd be able to maybe get that pity pack, you know, being able to be high enough to get that one pack at the end. That's kind of the standard and higher of where you could go. You could top your locals. Hell, you might actually think, you know what, I've been able to build such a strong enough deck with such a budget, you know what, I'm going to go to a regionals with it. Not recommending you would, because there are a lot of staples, and unfortunately you've got to pay to play in this kind of game, but at least this is kind of the good foundation of where to be going. But before I go into it, guys, make sure you like, subscribe, comment down below, kind of what you want to maybe see next. I've got a lot more videos coming up. I've got a lot in the making. Thinking of a series that I may be starting, but we kind of got to see how that works out. But yeah, let's get right into the video. Starting off with number 5. This is kind of a deck that everyone knows as being a budget deck. It's 3 structure decks, and I've spoken about it a few times, and it's still really powerful. Dino. So Dino came from the structure deck. All of the cards, barring a handful, comes from the structure deck. Animadorn Archosaur was the more expensive card that you needed. However, it's now had many reprints and is a very budget. Miscellaneousaurus going to 1 did mean this deck lost a lot of value. But it's still a very competitive. Going second strategy, which will throw off a lot of your opponents. The most expensive cards you're really going to see in the kind of deck are going to be your external stuff. If you go for your Forbidden Droplets or you go for your Lightning Storms. And of course, hand traps always. Scrap Dino is a pretty good type of engine you could go with on top of that. So all you need is literally 3 Scrap Raptors, a Chimera. Scrap Raptors are so easy to get hold of because they're commons. Chimera got the recent gold print in the Eldorado structure deck. A Wyvern. Lagia and Dolka just got reprints as well. Appaloosa as well, you could easily get. It's got value to it, but that would probably be a high end of what you need. But you could always go for another card. Yeah, I'd really say that this is quite a budget. It is definitely a budget, powerful deck. The rest of the decks I'm going to speak about aren't going to be necessarily cheaper, but it's more the competitive edge. So Dino is one of the kind of, honestly, the least powerful compared to the rest of these decks. But I think that's just because, just power creep. Dino's been around for a fair bit of time. All of these are going to have the disadvantage of that you can't have many hand traps in it. Hand traps are going to be the most expensive thing, so depending on what's left in your budget, you might go to that 150 cap that I spoke about and then use the rest on hand traps. And Dino is definitely one of them where you'll have a lot more to spend in that situation. So yeah, Dino 100% number 5. Just unfortunately gets just kind of squeezed out by the rest of the decks that you're going to see coming up. Number 4 is Virtual World. Virtual World is fairly budget. It's had a lot of reprints in the Grand Creators, where a lot of the monsters, for example like Nyan Nyan, and having Emergency Teleport gone down to rare, having the gold reprints in the gold tins for a lot of the monsters as well, and just having them reprints. Not to forget, there's a lot of variants you could play. I'm not going to recommend Brave or Adventure because that's really expensive. However, you could maybe try and squeeze in a small punk engine. It could take you to the high end of your budget, but that's a little bit more competitive. Personally, don't like it because I just kind of feel like everyone says, oh, you go down that and then you can go down this. It's one of them, you need to see a very finite engine that can easily be messed with and then go into your Eldritch stuff anyway, and it takes up room in the extra. And I'm not going to go into it. But yeah, Virtual World has got a lot of reprints. You have to remember with Grand Creators, a lot of your main staples, you can have the Solemn Strikes, which is really good and really strong. Having 3 Solemn Strikes and having 3 Emergency Teleports in rare means like a lot of cards are budget. Lulu was probably the most expensive card and probably still is, but it's had multiple prints now. So it means that this deck is still very playable. You'd have to build it by scratch, unfortunately, but like I said, all of them have been reprinted enough that you could kind of gather up a whole virtual world deck and not really have to worry about it too much. Shen Shen is still an amazing, powerful anti-meta card, which can just beat a lot. Final Sigma, being the level 12 synchro that you go into, can demolish Flu under ease, and it is really a strong powerhouse. Ultimate Zolkin, you can get that in common. Crystal Wing, you can easily get hold of that. All the kind of cards for the extra deck, barring Zeus, which will kind of take you above, but that's about £17 right now. I don't know what in dollars, but it's about £17. So you could, in theory, build a fairly strong... A lot of the extra stuff that you're going to have to spend money on is going to be hand traps, which you can spend a lot of money on. Small World, that's another card that's a lot of money, but that's not necessarily added into. You don't have to pay for the £20 Ash Blossom. You can go for the more cheap common Effect Veiler. You can go for the Ghost Ogres. You can go for the DD Crows, the Skullmeisters. So you have got other options if you want to have a thick hand trap board. And don't forget, Skill Drain is playable in the deck. Yes, I know right now it's a bit pricey, but it's going to have a reprint soon. So Skill Drain can definitely play because all of the virtual world monsters activate in the hand. And you have to remember, it's all one effect in hand to target something, special summon, and then do your third effect of maybe it's summon from grave, searching one to hand, dumping one to grave. All of that, it's all from the hand. So if you kind of play a Skill Drain, special summon, and then end on just a big monster, you can kind of have that back and forth because you have back row to kind of deal with things like Chuche. That can kind of be like remove some banished stuff and you can do some popping because yeah, it is a really strong deck and it's doing a lot in the meta right now. So I would really strongly recommend Virtual World as a budget deck. A pure Virtual World, maybe the Punk, but definitely pure Virtual World is a great budget deck right now. Going into the top 3, and just so you guys know, the previous 2 decks were kind of in the order, but decks 3, 2, and 1 are in really your personal order because some of them could be a little bit more expensive. But these are 3 meta decks I'm going to talk about, and they are the top meta right now, the 3 of them I'm about to say. So it's crazy that I'm about to talk about 3 meta decks, but it's just take out just a handful of cards. So let's start in the kind of order I have them written down. Number 3 is going to be PK. So, of course, you can't run the Brave engine, but PK is actually incredibly budget. So, all of the PK deck really came down to the Legendary Hero decks. Legendary Hero 3, where you had the Destiny Hero, Asia, and Phantom Knight deck in one, that was about £17 to £20. 3 of them guaranteed you a full PK deck, Rusty Bardish, Fogblade, and you could also scrap other cards as well from the other 2 decks. So you had Effect Veilers in the deck. You have also just a lot of special summoning for level 3s. You have Monster Reborn, you have Darkhole, you have MST. These are just a lot of like staples that you can also access if you buy this. So this is kind of like the cheapest way to build it. Torn Scales is going to be a bit of an expensive card because you're going to need, you want to play it optimally. But yeah, you can get 3 Torn Scales, that's maybe about £15 right there. Other hand traps, will cost you money. But yeah, it's a really cheap deck. Obviously, Art Rebellion, Dragon, that's had multiple reprints. Same with Raiders Knight, that's had a fair few reprints. So these are other cards you go down, but everything came in the structure in these decks. The starter deck, structure deck, the Legendary Hero collection deck. So you have just immediate access there to really everything, apart from, like I said, Torn Scale, Arc Rebellion, Raiders Knight. Even like the Levy Dragon was in there. All of these were commons as well. So PK on its own, yes, you probably need to get a Cherubini and was it Graf and Seer? I don't know which the Burning Abyss cards they. But again, this will all be under your budget. This could be easily an under £100 deck. How powerful it is compared to PK Brave is a big difference because the Brave stuff stops you from maybe getting nibs or interacted. It saves you from the nib really. So you are susceptible to nib, but PK is still PK. PK is strong. So yeah, Phantom Knight, 100% budget. It's a crazily budget deck. Obviously with the extra cards you get as well, that kind of helps to fill the gaps of the staples. Like I said, you do get free effect veilers, which are a relevant hand trap. Other hand traps as well, like Ghost Ogre, are still quite easy to get hold of. They are fairly cheap. Ghost Bell and Winter Cherries, not Ghost Bell and Winter Cherries, Ghost Bell and Haunted Mansion. I'm thinking of Winter Cherries Reaper. I was playing Mystic Mine, that's why. But yeah, Ghost Bell and Haunted Mansion is a kind of pseudo Ash. Yeah, it revolves more around the graveyard, but the meta is kind of leaning towards that right now. But it's really powerful. So Phantom Knight, 100%. I'm going to put it third, strictly because I could put it first because it's the most budget out of them. But I'm definitely going to put it third because I feel like the adventure stuff is what's really tipped it over the edge. And so take that away, you've still got a meta deck, but you've got the softer version of it, but it's still powerful. Second on the list of the top 5, Eldritch. Eldritch is budget. It's had enough reprints. The Eldorado gold set guaranteed this deck being budget. Yes, you have to sacrifice a Lord of Heavenly Prison, which is a really good, powerful deck, powerful card. But you can still play a very pure version of Eldritch. You could maybe play a trap version if you can kind of get the cards, but I know like Banshee is going up in price right now, and I'm very much aware that Zombie World is not a cheap card either. So there is that option. If you already have it, you know, might as well take advantage of it. But Eldritch on its own, very cheap. Because they've got just the gold letter rares and the gold rares, you're not having to spend that much. If you play a very much trap orientated, like I said, Solemn Strike and Torrential Tribute, 2 very strong cards, especially TT, because that's been in Eldritch, are rares now. So you have a lot of access to that. You just have to play a very heavy trap build, but you can really just dominate the field. You have to, like I said, all you're really sacrificing is being able to kind of go into trains as easily without the Lord of Heavenly Prison. In addition to that, you're losing a extra set of a card. And the only other really expensive card I can really think about, of course you can play Ice Dragon's Prison to remove cards. That has had the reprint now, so it's not cheap, but cheaper. You can play Skill Drains in the deck, eat very comfortably. They're getting the reprint soon, so that'll lower it down. But yeah, Eldritch 100% is a very budget, very cheaper deck, and I would put this above Phantom Knight. But not by much. It is a very strong controlling deck, and the fact that they've now got, you can play 3 Raigeki in it if you wanted to as well, because it is just a really strong removal deck. You know, Raigeki's cheap as well. Just in all these decks, you can just probably slap in 3 Raigeki. Mainly Dino, oh my god. But yeah, 3 Raigeki, because it's had so many prints, and now it's at 3. Yeah, Eldritch, amazing deck, very budget, easily, you know, definitely under £150, you know what I mean? Maybe, depending on how you look at it, you might even get under £100, like 80 something. But then you got to add in all the extra stuff. But yeah, very budget, very powerful deck. Definitely worthy of the number 2 spot. The number 1 spot is, it's a very, very powerful deck right now. And the reason it's in the number 1 spot is because it's the most complete out of all the decks on the list, but it is literally on the edge of budget. It is very much on the edge of budget, but it will literally hand you a meta deck. Fluunder. And I know a lot of people are probably going to be screaming at me in the comments saying it's not that budget, these cards cost this card like that. I'm very much aware that Rise of the Mega Monarch is a very expensive card right now, but you only play 1. Everything else then, like obviously 3 of the new card, 3 of M-Pin, or 2 of M-Pin, whatever ratio you decide, the map, all of this is going to cost you money. But then everything else is very cheap. It's just these handful of cards, like maybe £15 for the maps, £15 for the M-Pins, or maybe something like this. All of this will add up, but it's not like a Sword Soul deck or a Brave Engine. These cards will add up, and of course, like, maybe you're sacrificing hand traps, but all of these decks really are sacrificing hand traps. But this gets you a very much fully built, pure Fluunder deck. So that's why I'm kind of giving it the number 1 spot, because Fluunder is a horrible deck to deal with. You can still try and get your D-Fissures, your Macrocosmos, your D-Shifters very easily. You can get out your main monster being Rise of the Mega Monarch. You can probably still get an Apex Avian as well, or yeah, is it Apex Avian or Miss Valley Thunderbird? One of the 2. You can definitely get that. You can still Wind Barrier lock people. So, but it will literally take you to the edge of what I will call budget as £150. When you're going over that, like £200, I kind of think you might as well go for a more cheaper deck and then just add really expensive staple cards. Like I wouldn't go £150 to complete a deck without the hand traps. I'd rather spend 80 on Eldritch and then put 120 in for all the extra crazy stuff. So that's where I change it up. But yeah, it is very much on the edge of being the budget top deck, but it is budget and it is powerful. It is incredibly powerful, has an amazing synergy with the meta right now of how it just doesn't care about its graveyard, what every other deck does, and it can fully take advantage of that by shutting off your graveyard completely. It just changes the game. They are susceptible to big monsters that are over 2800, but if you are a good, smart player, you'll be able to kind of shift around that. And being able to tribute your opponent's cards to summon out their monster as well just means they have built-in removal of everything, because it's not destruction, it's tributing. It doesn't have to be a monster, it can be back row as well. So a lot of these back row decks, like when I was playing Mystic Mine on Sunday, I was terrified of going against the one Fluunder player. And me and him, Frankie, big shout out to you, man, because you kind of helped me suss out that this is probably the best one. We were discussing it because I said it first to him. I said, well, Fluunder is budget. He said, well, I don't know, rises between £40 and £60, give or take. But then afterwards, when we discussed it, we kind of added it up. And it's like, yes, that's the biggest. And I said, how many did you play? Just one. After that, everything else kind of then just toppled in just to squeeze it in there. But yeah, Fluunder is 100% number one deck. Eldritch, great competitor for it. PK as well, great competitor for it. You know, and that's why I really struggled to put them in the tier spots. And I'm kind of going off more what I wrote down earlier when I was in flow state. But yeah, Fluunder is number one top competitive budget deck of current format right now. Obviously, we'll see what kind of comes out over time. We'll see kind of how the format kind of shapes up. I know there's a regionals coming up at the 19th of March, and I'll be interested to see kind of what's going to be scaled up there, and then we get to see like maybe new decks start to step in. Obviously, I know that ABC is kind of stepping a little bit with the Brave engines. I'm not talking about budget now, but I'm saying about information. DDD, you know, that's coming out of the works, and that's a powerful deck. So that's going to be an amazing one to watch as well. But yeah, guys, everything looks really good in the format, and I'm looking to kind of see what kind of decks rise up. We might have new budget decks that kind of take over. But another honourable mention I do want to talk about, Salamangreat. That was almost on the list. But when I was kind of weighing it up, Salamangreat relies too heavily on its hand traps now and access code talker. So you strip away Ash Blossom, which is going to be the best hand trap for them because it's fire, so you can recur it. You take away the hand traps like Ash, you take away access code talker for the guaranteed OTK. It just doesn't make the mark, which is a shame because it's one of my favourite decks. It really is. But yeah, guys, I hope you all enjoyed the video. I hope you kind of, maybe think, you know what, I'm actually going to maybe build this. It is budget, I can maybe try and take this. This is for the local level, or if you maybe build the Fluunder, definitely take it to a regionals, but way up, are you still missing a handful of really good cards? But yeah, this is definitely the top end of your locals level. This is like, you're going to guarantee get a pack when you walk away winning or something, you know what I mean? You're going to make money, you're going to make profit, you're going to plus on something with this. So guys, I hope you enjoyed. Comment down below what decks I may have missed, because I guarantee I probably missed one deck. Comment down below what you want to see next. But like, subscribe, share the video, and peace.